All right, so let's get started on our first style of bossa nova. And this is the main bossa nova groove. I'm going to break everything down for you for what you should be doing in each limb, starting with the feet and then moving toward the hands, and then we'll put it together. And eventually in future lessons, I'm going to show you a couple of practical variations. But this is going to be the standard beat that's sort of the go-to for all bossa nova playing. So we're going to start with our feet, and some of you may know already the standard foot pattern for bossa nova or samba is this pattern that is represented by the surdo drum, if you remember a couple lessons ago when I was standing up and playing it. And it sounds something like this: 1, a 2, a 1, a 2. So if you remember, that is what I was playing with a mallet with the muting and unmuting techniques of my other hand. And if you are able to try to get a more advanced technique on your foot, when you hit those beats, 2 of each measure, 1 and 2, and 1 and 2, you can accent them with your foot by striking that note either a little louder or pulling your foot back to pull the beater out a little bit. And then I'm gonna slow it down and it would be something like this: 1, a 2, a 1, a 2. Now, for the sake of keeping things a little simple on these videos, I'm gonna just use a straight foot technique for the patterns that we play. But this is something that you can develop with your independence of your hands over a period of time. Now, notice the left foot is just answering the bass drum like that. And your right hand is going to play on the ride. And I'm gonna show it to you on the ride, but we're also gonna do a variation off the hi-hat as well and go back and forth. But we'll start on the ride. And the ride variation is basically a straight, steady 16th note or 8th note pattern, depending on how you're reading it. If you're reading it in 2, 1, a 2, it's 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a. If you're reading in more of a double time, it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and that would be 8th notes. Now, the starting point would just to be play sort of a straight pattern. But in order to get a little more depth to your pattern, you probably want to accent that upbeat feel that's simultaneously with what's going on with your left foot, which is 1, a 2, a 1, a 2. And it gives it a little bit more depth, and it propels the beat a little bit more, and it gives it more of like almost like a danceability sort of a thing. All right. Now the left hand is the most important here because this is the pattern that sort of defines what groove you're playing for bossa nova. For those who know this pattern, this is the standard bossa pattern that most people know. Now, it's often referred to a bossa clave rhythm. Now, we will be getting into Afro-Cuban rhythms in different lessons, and that is based around clave rhythms. But for Brazilian music, there really is no essential clave rhythms. It's just a rhythm that is sort of similar to an Afro-Cuban clave rhythm. Now that pattern goes something like this: 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. If you know anything about clave rhythms, it's similar to the 3-2 son clave and Afro-Cuban, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. But we definitely want to make that distinction in Afro-Cuban that it does have a different delayed note at the end if you're starting on this side of the rhythm. And you put everything together and it sounds like this: 1, a 2, a 1, and 2, and. Now, just as a quick variation, you need to think of your performance like you would think of in any song, the developmental aspect of it, starting on the hi-hat or starting on something lighter. You could even start with a brush if you wanted to, but starting on the hi-hat and eventually moving to the ride cymbal. So maybe 4 times through is a good exercise of starting on the hi-hat, moving to the ride, and going back again with a small fill in between. Okay? Same Brazilian Clave rhythm for this pattern, starting on the hi-hat, going to the ride. 1, a 2, a 1, and 2. And that is your standard bossa nova pattern. And if you start there, you're in a good position to figure out how to vary from there. From here, we're going to start talking about the variations in the upcoming lessons.